Hi folks, Joe Stagner from Microsoft here, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to use the Color Picker extender that ships as part of the Microsoft Ajax Control Toolkit. So to get started, let's fire up Visual Studio and create a new website. And because this is going to be an Ajax enabled web page, of course, we need to go over to the Visual Studio toolbox, scroll down and find our Ajax Extensions tab and add a script manager to the page. Now, the Color Picker is actually a control extender, so we need a control to extend. I'm going to grab a text box control and drop it onto our page. Now let's give it an ID of something that will be a little bit more meaningful. So let's call this Color 1 because the target of the Color Picker extender will be the hex value of the color that we choose. So we're going to put that hex value in this text box. Now, once we've done that, let's go ahead and specify a max length. Since this is going to be a hex value, we can go ahead and say that the max length is going to be 6. And now I'll just add a little break there, and now we can go down, find our Ajax Control Toolkit tool tab, and find the Color Picker extender control, drop an instance of that on the page. Now, before we can use this at all, the one thing that we need to set in this control is the target control ID. So let's open up the control properties. You can see here quite a collection of properties that are accessible, but in our case, we're just going to specify that Color 1 is the target. Okay, let's run just what we have so far. So here's our text box, and notice that when I make the text box the current artifact on the page, the Color Picker appears, and if I choose a color, the hex value appears in the text box. So that's the basics. You can see that getting started is very easy, but let's take a few minutes, go back into our code, and see how we can extend on this experience so that what the user sees is more like the kind of color choosing experience that your website users would be used to. So let's go back to the markup for our default.aspx page, and let's add a little feedback to the user when they select a new color using the Color Picker. So what I'm going to do here is down in our page, down below the Color Picker extender here, let's just add a line break. Now let's add some JavaScript code. So let's say script type equals JavaScript. And now that we have some a script section, I can create a function. So let's say function color changed. And we're going to need the sender, so that'll be received from the calling object. Now here, what we're going to do is let's set the color style, so the text, the color of the text that's actually going to be in the text box, let's set that to whatever color the user chose. So let's say sender.get element style color equal, and we're going to be passing in a hex value, so we need to append the hash mark in front of whatever gets selected. And now we can just grab from sender, say get selected color. And we need to make sure our case is correct because JavaScript, of course, is case-sensitive language. Okay, so now the next thing that we need is we need this onColorChanged function to be called when the color gets changed. Well, that's not that difficult to do either. So let's go back up and get to the end of our extender and add a method for onClientColorSelectionChanged. And the method is going to be our JavaScript function color changed. All right, let's go ahead and run that. So now I can pick a color, and then when I pick that color, notice that the color of the text that's displayed in that box is the color we chose. So that's a good start, but let's do one more version that's a little bit more advanced that will mimic the way that users really are used to seeing color pickers used in web forms. So back here in our default.aspx page, let's go ahead and we'll do one more implementation of using the color picker, and we'll use a scenario that's common for use on the web. So let's go ahead and get rid of that JavaScript code because we're not going to run that. And here in our color picker, let's get rid of the on client selection changed event. We're going to use a different mechanism to indicate that. One resource I need to add to my site here is I'm going to add an images folder. So let's go ahead and first add a folder. And then I'm going to add one image that's sitting on my desktop. So let's say add an existing item and grab that button image there. And now underneath my text box I'm going to add an ASP.NET image button, and we're going to set the URL for that image button to be the image that we just included. So let's say image URL equal, and we're going to pick the URL by choosing the image that we just included in our project there. So that's going to be our image button. Underneath the image button, we're going to add an ASP.NET panel control. And in our panel, I'm going to, just for expedience sake here, I'm going to set a width. Now, you'll see what this is used for momentarily here, but let's just hop out here, and I'm going to set this width. Now, obviously, the panel can be any shape that you want, so let's try something like this. Just make it square. Now, you'll see that this panel is what we're going to use as the sample control for the color that gets chosen by the user. So if we go back into source here now, all we need to do is change the configuration of our color picker extender here a little bit. So I'm just going to format this a little bit. Now, let's say first thing that we need to set is the sample control ID. So the target control ID is already set from the previous demo. So the target control ID is going to be that text box. But now we want to set the sample control ID equal to the panel that we just configured. All right, so we'll set that equal to panel 1. The other thing that we want to set is we want to set a pop-up button ID. Now, this is the control that will cause the color picker to be popped up when it gets clicked on. So here, we'll set that equal to image button 1. Okay, so that's it. Let's see what we've got. Go ahead and run. So notice here, this is our image. If I click on the image, we get the color picker. If I choose the color picker, notice that our sample control ID now has its color property set to whatever color we chose. So I can go in and pick a different color. Let's pick blue this time, and that works. So hopefully that shows you how easy and how flexible it is to use the color picker control. And I want to remind you that the Ajax Control Toolkit sample website has great examples. So if we look at the color picker, you'll notice not only can we use the color picker and see this has a little bit more elegant layout than the one that we just created, but you can also see all of the properties and some information about theming. So this sample website is a great resource for figuring out the specifics of how to use each of these Ajax Control Toolkit controls.